awesome. Yeah, mate. That's a Ninja. Right, now this guy's got a real Ninja. Look at this. Come on, mate. Turn off. I'm trying to turn the GoPro off and it won't turn off. Lincolnshire Wolds. We're heading to the Wolds. Butlins. Welcome to Butlins. There's the Savoy Hotel, look. We need to talk about Reform UK.
We are seeing the rise of Reform. Their surge in the polls continues.
Now, I knew that Reform UK were gaining popularity, but this latest poll shows them winning the next general election.
They would win a staggering 445 seats, with Labour reduced to just 73 MPs and the poor old Tories down to just 7. Just
in case you've been living under a rock for the last 3 years, Reform UK were formerly known as the Brexit Party. The Brexit Party were basically formed because there was no one to put pressure on the government when we left the EU. They're led by Nigel Farage. Autumn is here. He's currently serving his second stint as their leader. Alright, mate, the voting intention. Going into corner, always look to where you want to go. Do not look at the corner. Would be... There we go, I can't get the knee down. Overwhelmingly for Reform UK. Fields of Lincolnshire. If you don't know who Nigel Farage is, I just quit trying to understand politics. Yeah, so Richard Tice, the deputy leader for Reform, he's the MP for this area. And I don't actually live in this constituency. But constituency I do live in is right smack bang next door. And if I was to hedge my bets, I would say in the next election my constituency would become a Reform one. I actually think my own MP is probably likely to defect to Reform. I think first we need to understand what has happened with Keir Starmer. His popularity has just gone down and down and down since getting into office. So if you cast your mind back to summer of 2024, you'll remember scenes like this.
Good morning from Westminster. Labour have won a landslide victory in the general election.
We did it!
It is a spectacular turnaround for Sir Keir Starmer's party less than 5 years after their worst result in almost a century.
Okay. And Reform only got 5 seats. We're only talking, let's say, less than 18 months ago. There's the Savoy Hotel, look. I love little seaside hotels like that. So he started his tenure by appointing his cabinet, and he appointed Rachel Reeves as Chancellor. Here, can I get round here? Just get round, Candy. So then she announces the winter fuel allowance is now going to be means tested. Labour are a left-wing government, and that's exactly the sort of thing that left-wing governments propose as policy, having a winter fuel allowance to look after the elderly and all that. Everybody was a bit like, what the hell? Then at the same time as that, as Candy, Southport attacks happened and the riots started. Now the riots of summer 2024, that's a separate video entirely. But why it's relevant to this is because Sir Keir enabled the judicial system to deal with the rioters at lightning pace, and they were ruthless with their sentencing. Fine, I mean, if you're going around setting fire to hotels and things, of course you need to feel the full force of the law. But the problem with it was, it set a benchmark of sentencing under Sir Keir Starmer, and he had only been in the office of Prime Minister 5 minutes, and it led to the nickname 2 tier Keir straight away. Then following on from that, he started to attack people's disability benefits. Don't think this guy knows where he's going, albeit he did U-turn slightly on it and become less harsh on the means testing. Started releasing prisoners early to tier Keir. It really didn't make for a good start. But most significantly, he said when he was campaigning that he would stop the boats, he would take down the gangs.
The government has lost control of our borders, and we can see that with the number of crossings there are across the channel in small boats. We have to stop that. And I think the only way to stop that is to smash the gangs that are running this vile trade.
And that hasn't happened. The amount of channel crossings have actually gone up since Keir Starmer assumed office. And of course it's going to take time, but I mean it's been over a year and the amount of crossings are going up. That doesn't surprise me that people are losing patience and switching allegiance to Reform, because their whole thing is about securing the borders and tackling illegal migration. But then, oh, you silly girl. The icing on the cake at the Labour Party conference, he announced, state of this, plans to introduce digital ID, which no one wants. I cannot find, except for the Labour Party, there doesn't seem to be any prominent politician making a solid case for it. So there's that, and we've now got fucking idiot plans to increase income tax as well. So that's the demise of Keir. Now going in. Skegness Beach. Gibraltar Point is like the corner of the Wash. It's where the North Sea meets the Wash. Let me know in the comments what you think that is. You gotta consider the Conservatives. The fiasco of changing Prime Minister every 5 minutes that led to Keir Starmer winning the election in the first place is still very fresh in a lot of people's minds. Look at that, a church on a roundabout. What other town has a church on a roundabout? Hey? Let me know in the comments. But then, loads of the politicians in the Conservative Party, I think they knew the writing was on the wall before the election last year, because loads of them announced they weren't going to stand. And also, after Rishi had lost, there was a whole cohort of them that just disappeared from the party, leaving a complete vacuum of people to stand for leadership. And the leader that they've got, Kemi Badenoch, no offence to her or anything, but I'd never heard of her at all until she became leader of the Conservative Party, and I just find she's just completely uninspiring. She's doing the best she can with what she's got though, and that isn't a lot. Mate, they don't really seem to have a clear vision for the future. Doesn't really seem to be a very strong shadow cabinet, and it just seems utterly uninspiring. So when you combine that on the Conservative side with the demise of Keir Starmer, you've got the perfect ingredients for the rise of a third party. Now I know what you're probably thinking. We've already got a third party. Yeah, mate. That's a Ninja. the Liberal Democrats. So why aren't they surging? Why reform? Well, I might just turn around here. You've got to ask yourself, do the Liberal Democrats really offer a serious alternative? They're seen as weak on most things. The biggest issue for most people, it seems to me, seems to be getting control of the borders and dealing with immigration properly. And the perception with the Liberal Democrats is that they're not going to be able to do that. They're too soft. I'm sure I saw one interview with that guy. Oh, what's his name? Greens are just... Is it Polanski? Saying that he would open up the borders. So then you've got to consider who else there is, and the only other option really to deal with those issues is Reform UK. There's brand new M4 there. That's why they're surging ahead in the opinion polls. Right, let's go towards Fantasy Island and Butlins. I've ridden down here many times, and every single time the amount of caravans blows my mind. There we go, there's Butlins, look. People love it, they still go. I have never been. Now say what you will about Nigel Farage, the guy clearly does inspire people, and he clearly does have a lot of talent as a politician. Look at the amount of caravans and caravans, more caravans, more caravans. Immigration was a really decisive factor in leaving the European Union, and since we left, the UK, along with the rest of Europe, has actually seen more immigration. The levels are too high. You can't sustain immigration at the levels that they're coming in. I think one thing, in hindsight, it probably wasn't the best idea to scrap that Rwanda scheme with no actual alternative in place. Fine if you don't like the Rwanda scheme, but he had no other thing lined up. So where are all those people going to go that would have gone to Rwanda? They're going to go to hotels in the United Kingdom paid for by the British taxpayer. So of course people are going to shift to the part that they feel will actually deliver. Because Nigel Farage did deliver Brexit. He didn't have a party that were in government, so he couldn't really deliver what came after Brexit. He just campaigned for us to vote to leave, and then left it for the Conservative Party at the time to clear up. My fuel light has just come on. I filled up yesterday. I think it speaks volumes also that the local elections are being cancelled. You've only got to look at the performance of Reform UK in by-elections to understand that this really is, like, people really are gravitating to them. And then the Conservatives writing to the government to get them to postpone local elections, local council elections again. It's because they're scared. Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, they could get this back. They need to U-turn on a few things, but they could get public sentiment back in the space of the next 3.5 years. Now, I think Nigel Farage and Reform's problem is that they don't have any real, except for Nigel, they don't have any real established, experienced politicians with notoriety. Let's say they get into government and they deal with the border. Then what? Then you're left with a government that have got no real experience in anything else. And that is a huge issue. That being said, it doesn't really take a genius to see that loads of Conservative politicians with experience, they either didn't stand or they lost their seats in 2024. I mean, I can think of a handful off the top of my head. but there's one in particular that springs to mind, and if he was to come on board with Reform UK, I would say it's almost game over. If you've got any thoughts on the rise of Reform, let me know in the comments. North Sea Observatory. The North Sea Observatory. Just north of Skegness, Chapel St Leonard, on the east coast.
Wow.
There they are. North Sea whiting. Butlins! Welcome to Butlins! We're actually in Ingamell, not Skegness. But they brand it as Skegness. There you go, had my indicator on, didn't I? Every biker I know does it. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. The police are there. That's what happens when you fly a kite close to stuff. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed that, please hit like, subscribe and turn that notification bell on.